OAN stands for One America News. And they're one of the networks that boasts about being further right than Fox News. And thanks to discontent about Fox News, apparently they're too liberal for some Trump supporters, they have been growing. They've actually got a pretty big presence, on independent media, social media, YouTube. They're incredibly large. And so part of the secret of their success is the fact that they're willing to lie to everybody. In fact, they lie to their audience, but in doing so, they actually do so worse than Fox News. And it's not just me saying this. This is former and current employees of One America News that recently talked to the New York Times. In fact, New York Times' Rachel Abrams did a deep dive on OAN, which has pushed conspiracy theories about topics like the 2020 election. They're still talking about that. In fact, according to the report, 16 out of 18 current and former employees interviewed took serious issue, with reports that the network itself has aired. Abrams spoke with, first, a man named Marty Galingen, an OAN producer since 2016. And he said that he was troubled by what the network's reporting ended up leading to. In fact, he was watching coverage of the pro-Trump mob breaking into the Capitol. He said that he was worried that his work might have actually helped inspire that act of domestic terrorism. He added that he and others at OAN disagreed with much of the channel's coverage. The majority of people did not believe the voter fraud claims being run on the air, Mr. Golnigan said in an interview referring to his colleagues. Well, his colleagues didn't believe it, but they reported it anyway. And guess who does believe it? The crowd. The viewers. Well, don't you think that's a little bit of a problem? That you're putting out false, defamatory stuff that is leading people astray, and that is leading people to violence? Don't you think that that's a bit of a problem? Well, I guess now they're like, oh yeah, it turns out some of the work that I did might have led to armed rebellion, or nearly armed rebellion. So at least armed insurrection. Because again, there were people armed with flags, bear spray, things like that. Handcuffs, zip ties, all that stuff. And they were looking to do some serious harm. And in fact, they did. Turns out, breaking news, Officer Brian Sicknick, who was attacked by the mob, has just passed away. So, but hey, back to blue, right? Now, there's more. He also recalled, this is Mr. Galingen still, seeing a photo of somebody in the Capitol mob holding a flag emblazoned with the OAN logo. I was like, oh, that's not good. That's what happens when people listen to us. You think? Hell, man, that's what happens when people listen to us. They take up arms against the government. That's why maybe they shouldn't listen to us, because all we're doing is just, spreading disinformation. But the money's just so good. So here's the thing. Us on the left have been talking about rhetoric for a long time. What kind of rhetoric, what kind of information you put out, what kind of platform do you have? We've been saying this a lot about conservative media, how their lies and BS would lead to things like this possibly happening. It turns out, hey, we were right. Weird how that turns out. Very strange. But here's the thing. It's not just conservative propaganda. It's not just conservative media. It's just straight up far right nationalism. It's nationalism and complete and utter lies. But there's more. Another former OAN news producer, Alicia Britton, said that she was one of more than a dozen employees who had left OAN after the January 6th riots. Golnigan even told the Times that some of the network were secretly hoping for a Dominion lawsuit, and said things like this, quote, "This is insane, and maybe if they sue us, we'll stop putting stories like this out. Stories like what? Let me give an example here. According to the network, there's still serious doubts about who is actually president, according to OAN correspondent Pearson Sharp. Now, if this was during the tumultuous couple of days following the election, where some states were still getting counted, and the counts were incredibly close, and everybody was on edge and pins and needles. Okay, I could get that. Still kind of a stretch. But hey, I could see how some conservatives could be like, there's still a chance. There's still a chance Trump could pull this one out. Well, that wasn't then. No, this was dated. This report aired on March 28th, 2021. Oh, man, still serious doubts about who's president. They don't even call Biden president. They refer to Trump as Mr. President, but they do not refer to Biden as, Mr. President. Even President Biden, oh, look, I know I would be like, oh, Trump this, Trump that. But then I would also be like, oh, President Donald Trump, when I would open up a segment. They're like, no, we're going to not say that at all. We're not going to admit that Joe Biden is the president because, well, that would counter our narrative that we were selling to our viewers. And understand, of course, the only reason that they're selling it to the viewers is because that's what the viewers want. That's what they want to hear. It's just this big, bubble, echo chamber. It really is insane. And so there's that. Now, OAN has also promoted the debunked theory that rioters who stormed the Capitol were members of Antifa. Toward the end of a March 4th news segment that described the attack as the work of Antifa and anti-Trump extremists, even though there's no evidence, and in fact that all the credible everyone has come out and said, yeah, we have absolutely no evidence that Antifa was at all linked to the attack in the Capitol. This was pure Trump supporters. That's it. I mean, there's no Antifa. Okay, it wasn't them carrying Trump hats, Trump flags, yelling Trump 2020. And for some, doing years of pro-Trump content, hanging out with Trump fans, doing Trump things online, and echoing Trump. That had to have been like a really, the conspiracy goes deep, okay? So if you believe in these conspiracies, you're predisposed to them, like, oh yeah, of course, there were Antifa plants in there for the last 4 years at least, probably going back 10 years. And then, if we do that, then if at some point Donald Trump becomes president, then those Antifa people can blame a riot on Trump. This is ridiculous, okay? It's absolutely ridiculous. It's just, it's the deep rabbit hole, but they all jumped in it. And guess what? The rabbit hole, it works. It works. In fact, in a Reuters Ipsos poll taken last month, about half of all Republicans say they believe that the January 6th attack was largely either nonviolent, which is insane, because, again, totally violent, or was the handiwork of left-wing activists. About half. This is insane. But again, it's driven by these far-right echo chamber networks. Now, Miss Britton said in an interview, quote, "Many people have raised concerns, and the thing is, when people speak up about anything, you will get in trouble. And so understand that this is being driven by the top, right? At the top of this network. OAN is simply there to make money. And so how do they make money? They make money by making sure that they capture a slice of the audience and tell them, no, we're the only ones that are telling you the truth. Everyone else is lying to you. We're the only ones that are going to tell you exactly what you want to hear, which is the truth. It's truth. Anything you want to hear, that's true. That's true. And that's it. It's a gigantic pander to conspiracy-minded people run by Charles Herring. Now, Charles Herring is the head of OAN, and what he wants to do is to simply cash in on people who think that that Fox News is not right-wing enough or conspiratorial enough, which is interesting. In fact, they not only benefit from the conspiracy theories in the audience, but they also feed into them, and it creates some sort of weird feedback loop. It's really strange. In fact, according to the reports, assignments that the elder Mr. Herring takes a special interest to are known among OAN staff as something called H stories. Several current and former employees said, the day after Trump supporters stormed the Capitol, Mr. Herring instructed OAN employees in an email, which the New York Times did review, to, quote, report all the things Antifa did yesterday. So when unhinged MAGA supporters invaded the Capitol, this guy, Herring, was like, get me everything you've got on Antifa. Now, the H stories, a lot of the H stories are actually reported by a man named Christian Rose, an OAN correspondent who used to write for the Russian government. In a report in May on the pandemic, Ruse said COVID-19 might have started as a, quote, globalist conspiracy to establish sweeping population control, one that had ties to Bill and Hillary Clinton, George Soros, Bill Gates, and the deep state. Jesus fuck, dude. This is Georgia Guidestones crazy. This is Alex Jones reporting. You see this stuff on InfoWars, and yet, here you go. You've got OAN, a pretty sizable news, so-called news network that is allowing this stuff to get on air. And even the producers are like, this is crazy. This is all bonkers stuff. Why are we reporting this? Why are you? Oh, it's because Mr. Herring wants it. And we got these special H stories that we have to do or we get fired. And that's what it is. But it gets better. Ms. Britton, the former OAN producer, recalled checking a website that Mr. Rose had cited to back some of his reporting. I don't know what report it was referring to specifically, but where the link took her is literally to a right-wing chat room where conservatives were commenting towards each other. That's it. This is what counts as journalism for the right. And look, they take this very, very seriously. In fact, in an email to staff last month, Ms. Oakley, the news director, had warned producers against ignoring or playing down Mr. Rose's work. His stories should be considered H stories and treated as such. The H stories, of course, being the most important stories that they could do, and obviously are the most, the prioritized. They're prioritized above everything else. You got to do those H stories because that's what Mr. Herring wants. Wow. In fact, here she said, these stories are often slugged and copy edited by me as per Mr. H's instructions. So basically, this is a dictatorial newsroom. Anything Mr. H wants gets written, even if it's insane, even if it makes absolutely no sense. And that's what they do. That's what this is about. And unfortunately, this is what works in conservative media. They've got over 1.5 million subscribers on YouTube. 1.5 million. I wish I had half that, honestly. And maybe I should, but here's the thing. This is what we're up against, okay? Pure propaganda, straight up. No facts, no sources, no journalism, just editorializing for angry conservatives, telling them exactly what they want to hear. I can see why there's an appeal for that, especially on the right wing. But at the end of the day, a representative democracy, which is what we live in, actually requires voters to have knowledge of the issues so that they can send the right people to government in order to solve them. Now, of course, we have a broken system, but and in fact, we have the opposite of that. We've got so many people that are misinformed by a corporate press that is simply for profit. And that's what it is. And these people, as a result of all this disinformation, are sending the wrong people into office. And guess what? It's killing our country. We've got serious issues. We are so incredibly broken because, as it turns out, lying and telling people exactly what they want to hear is, yes, damaging to the country. But unfortunately for us, it is also incredibly lucrative and so much easier than telling people the truth. If you enjoyed this video, please give us a like and share with your friends. You can subscribe and help out the channel by becoming a patron. It's patreon.com/Jeff Waldorf, or you can become a channel member as well by hitting the join button below.